This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. The holidays mean more travel, more shopping, more time online, and more personal info in places that could expose you to identity theft. That's why LifeLock monitors millions of data points every second. If your identity is stolen, their US-based restoration specialist will fix it, guaranteed or your money back. Get more holiday fun and less holiday worry with LifeLock. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
A common sense recap of the day's biggest stories. It's John Catsimatidis and Rita Cosby. Katz and Cosby on 77 WABC.
And now we have Professor Alan Dershowitz joining us. Professor Dershowitz, thank you so much for being here. Some Democrats, and this is a topic, boy, do you know well better than anybody, Professor, the 14th Amendment. They're bringing up Section 3, 14th Amendment, saying maybe there's a way to block Trump because of, quote, the insurrection rebellion, and explain why that is just so ridiculous on so many levels.
Well, it's Professor Lawrence Tribe going crazy, construing the Constitution as a democratically written document to help the Democratic Party and hurt the Republican Party. There's nothing to it at all. The Supreme Court has already decided the case. Anybody who brings that case now, it's absolutely frivolous. They try to keep him off the ballot based on that, and the Supreme Court said no, so they can't prevent him from becoming president now that he's been elected. Look, this is what's destroying the Democratic Party. This is why I left the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party has become the party of woke intersectionality and total nuttiness. They are the party of Palestinianism, anti-Israelism, anti-Semitism, you name it. And I can point to people who represent that point of view, not only in the Democratic Party, but who spoke at the Democratic National Convention. Look, the Republicans have some people as well, but they're not as central to the party. They're much more peripheral, whereas Sanders and Warren and OAC and the Squad, you know, they have destroyed the Democratic Party, a party that I voted for since 1960 when I was 21 years old, and I voted for John F. Kennedy. And I'm no longer a Democrat. And I didn't leave the Democratic Party. They kicked me out. They said, no, we have no room for people like you because you're a person of common sense and liberalism and moderation, and you're not an extremist, and you're not anti-Israel, so you don't belong in the Democratic Party. So that's why the Democrats lost and why they'll continue to lose if they continue on this destructive, self-destructive path toward the left.
Professor Dershowitz, I was watching someone on the media the other day, and they said, these commutations by President Biden for some of the worst on death row, that's okay. But boy, if anybody from January 6th gets out, that's terrible. I mean, what's your reaction when you hear that kind of rhetoric from some people?
Well, it's exactly what you would expect. Look, there are people on the left who are adoring this kid who shot in cold blood the CEO, Luigi. There are people on the left who love Hamas and who cheer when Israelis are murdered, slaughtered, and raped. There are really, really extremists on the left. There are, as I say, a couple on the right as well. But the Republicans have done a much better job in marginalizing their crazies on the right than the Democrats. The Democrats have incorporated them. They've tried to create a big enough tent to include, people like AOC and me. Well, AOC and me cannot be in the same tent. You have to pick and choose. And they chose AOC. And they threw me out, and millions of other people like me who represent a kind of common sense, old line, Roosevelt, Jackson,
the guys with the gray hair
point of view, Pat Moynihan, all those people would today be thrown out of the Democratic Party. Bill Clinton made a speech the other day in Michigan in which he blamed the failure of the Palestinians to get a state clearly on Palestinian leaders and said the fault lies with them. They turned down a deal, and you can't expect a deal to come again. He got booed. You should see the social media stuff against Clinton for just saying the right thing. So, today Clinton probably couldn't be nominated.
That deal was in December of 2000, and Ehud Barak gave much more than he should have to the Palestinians, and they should have taken the deal. Isn't that right, Professor?
Even the Palestinians, the smart ones now admit that. They got 96% of the West Bank, 4% of Israel to make up for the 4% they didn't get. The entire Gaza Strip, 2/4, 2 units of the old city of Jerusalem, a symbolic right of return, some reparations, capital in Jerusalem.
Wow.
They got everything. But as Bill Clinton said, he was right. The Palestinians didn't want a state. They just wanted to kill Jews and make sure that there was no Israel. That has been their goal from the beginning. You know, when you go to any of these demonstrations, you never hear a call for a two-state solution because these demonstrators don't want there to be a second state. They just
by
want
the
there
way,
to be the state of Palestine, which will repress Palestinians and treat them the way they treated the Palestinians in Gaza.
and Professor Dershowitz, you probably saw this. I mean, there was a new poll that said 2/3 of Palestinians want Hamas in a new government in Gaza. I mean, that is really, after all this, wow. And
we don't know whether they really do or whether somebody's pointing a gun to their head.
Right.
But the idea that Hamas will give Palestinians rights, no. Women will have no rights. Gays will have no rights. Of course, if you're a Jew, you get lynched. I love this. Palestinians have this thing now saying, oh, my God, if Jesus and Mary and Joseph tried to go from Nazareth to Bethlehem, they'd be blocked by 3 or 4, checkpoints. No, they'd make it to Bethlehem and then they'd be lynched because they're Christians or Jews. You know, Christians and Jews can't live in peace in places like Gaza.
I think some
only
Christians
Muslims and only Sunni Muslims.
Some Christians are being hung or killed beheaded in Syria.
Yeah, it's so sad.
As we speak.
Yeah, so sad. Professor Dershowitz, thank you very, very much. We really appreciate you being here.
Monica, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to everybody. I love being on your show.
Oh, we
love you too.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor. Thank you.
Thank you.